Oh, controversy in the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles offseason. Let's talk for a few minutes, guys. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL World? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Stephen Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Hey, guys, if you're new to the channel, if I can ask you to do me a huge solid here today, if you enjoyed today's discussion, please consider subscribing. I would love to add you to the community. In order to do that, guys, I need you to hit the subscribe button. To my OG subscribers, if I can ask a favor of you, and that's just to keep hitting the thumbs up button. It's what spikes the algorithm. It helps me get in front of new people, helps us grow the community, guys. You guys are an integral part of that happening. Today's topic, just get ready for this, guys. It's going to be controversy. We're going to talk wide receivers. We're going to talk about some of the terms that have been thrown around recently, and I'm going to give you as much insight as I can about what's happening here. So you guys know that while I'm known for quarterbacks, guys, I played it in high school. I spent a lot of time coaching it, but I've also got some experience coaching receivers and defensive backs. And one of the terms that's been thrown around recently is about size protection. Simply put, guys, you and I have been talking about this for a long time. It's just that we've been discussing it in terms of saying we want a true boundary side, X-aligned wide receiver. That's what we mean by size protection. The last time the Eagles really had that element to their offense was when Alshon Jeffrey was healthy. So we've been a couple years removed from having that type of player on the roster. So that's really what we've all been saying for the longest time here is that, man, this offense truly needs size protection. They tried to get it this offseason, guys. It didn't work out. They put up a third-round pick for Calvin Ridley, and that fell apart because of reasonings off the field. They tried to sign during the free agency period Allen Robinson, who is a true boundary side X or tall slot that is a phenomenal red zone threat. He opted to go play with the defending champions, and, he's got familiarity with Matthew Stafford. They're NFC North guys. They know each other. It is what it is. What can you do about things that you can't control, guys? And then, last but not least, they try to do the alternative route, which was something I suggested that maybe would be a good fit for Philly, is if you can't find a true guy to size protect you, then maybe try to find a 3-depth layer receiver, a guy that can line up in multiple alignments for you. He's positionless or alignmentless, if you will, and he can attack all 3 levels of the field. Well, they kind of tried to do that with Robert Woods, and that fell through. So now we are where we are. Those are the facts, guys. I know that there's a lot of offshoots of conversation to this. We don't have enough time in one video to get into all that, guys. I mean, yes, there's the idea, the identity of the offense, and if that's restricting us, the youth that we have at quarterback, and whether or not guys are enthralled to play here. I mean, there's so many different ways of taking this discussion, guys, but I want to try to stay focused if we can. So, size protection. I think it is definitely something that is missing from this offense. And if you go back to how successful our offense was in 2017, Alshon Jeffrey, he was a big reason why it was, guys. And I know that's a controversial take just because we all feel a little weird about Alshon Jeffrey. Like, on one hand, we recognize that when he was really on his game, teams struggled to guard us. I'll tell you, in 2019, when he started really going downhill with the health concerns and the injuries, hey, man, the offense was never the same. Think about how much Nelson Aguilar came unglued when you removed Alshon Jeffrey from the offense. Remember, Nelson Aguilar had been, okay, decent, mostly to most extent a disappointment, until we added Alshon Jeffrey to the offense. And then when we allowed him to really thrive inside the slot and be what he was, we size protected him. He had a pretty dang good year in 2017 and an okay year in 2018. Before it all just became too much to even bear and watch in 2019. Alshon Jeffrey was kind of the key that sank us. And I know that that's multiple because, yeah, Steve, Alshon did. But how about JJ never filling the role that they drafted him to fill, right? Because wasn't he supposed to size protect us? You're right, he was, and he did not do it. We are still sitting here from that 2019 draft class trying to size protect here in 2022's class. Those are the undisputed facts. That is absolutely true. That is currently going on. A lot of you hit me up in DMs and asked me to speak about 4 players in particular. DJ Moore in Carolina, DK Metcalf in Seattle, A.J. Brown in Tennessee, and Deebo Samuels in San Francisco. I love all 4 of those players. All 4 of those players in their own unique ways size protect your roster. I don't think that all those guys are true traditional X-line receivers, but they do afford you some semblance of size protection. I don't think it's going to happen, guys. I don't mean to disappoint, but I don't want to fill your heads up with something that's not going to happen. And you guys be like, Steve, what the heck? I'm just telling you the truth, guys. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I don't think those dudes are coming here. It's not that I wouldn't love them to be here. It's not that I don't think it would be a wise decision for the Eagles front office to throw caution to the wind and give up some of this draft capital we have. Because, I mean, we have like 13 picks between 22 and 24 that are probably going to be like top 100 picks. So right around that range, guys. I'm all for getting rid of some of those picks to ensure your roster. Stop playing around with the lottery and actually go get dudes that are proven. I'm all for it. I just don't think it's going to happen this year. Possibly next year, guys, something like that. I don't have the expectation that this week, by the end of by the time we have this conversation next Sunday, I'm not saying that we won't make a move for a veteran player, a veteran receiver, but I just don't think it'll be those four guys. So, that leaves us with this conversation, Steve, because you just said it is a glaring need for the Eagles to size protect the roster. It is. They need to size protect Quez Watkins. They need to size protect Devontae Smith. Okay, you can say that Zach Pascal kind of does that for you. Zach Pascal is a quality third or fourth receiver. But I don't feel comfortable with that being the only way that you're size protecting these receivers. I'm not okay with that personally. So, controversial take number 2. I'm just telling you what was told to me. I got people that I get the opportunity to talk to that work for publications, and, you know, they get to hear things that come out of people from the front offices. And it's not necessarily an Eagles source saying this, so you always have to be concerned about there being deception. But I'm being told that the Eagles are not playing around about size protection. That if you want to know who they're truly thinking of, they're looking at 2 classifications of wide receivers. Right? They definitely will take a 3-level receiver, but more than anything, they want to size protect. And the name that keeps getting thrown back to me, and I said, when this person said this to me, I said, I don't personally see it, but I will trust that your sources are better than mine. The name that came back to me was Drake London. And the way that they're looking at this is that if you're going to take a Pac-12 receiver, that Pac-12 receiver had better come from USC. Just like if you're going to take a Pac-12 corner, that Pac-12 corner had better come from Washington. Those 2 schools have very particular things that happens in terms of, like, Washington produces secondary players, USC produces wide receivers. And that's the complication here, is that we got a guy that I think is a very, very challenging sell in the top 20 pick. He is productive, guys, and I am higher on him than a lot of you guys are. And I want to give some of you guys some props, because not everybody has been down on Drake London. I know that there are some of you guys in here saying that, hey, Steve, some of these guys are taking this too far. This is actually a lot better receiver than they're saying. And I'm with you, but I got to give you my true evaluation here before it happens, so that way it's not an after effect here. Truth be told, is I think he's a lot better than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I think he is a lot better than N'Keal Harry, 2 former Pac-12, wide receivers. I think he's completely different from a USC receiver and Michael Pittman. Same, similar size profile, but I think they play the game. Differently. Michael Pittman's far more of a kind of a yak guy, but they both provide size protection. There's no doubt about it. I do not think that this young man is anywhere near as explosive on his film as what I saw from Mike Williams coming out of Clemson and what I saw from Mike Evans coming out of Texas A&M. And that's the problem I have with the top 20 pick spin at wide receiver on a boundary side X-aligned guy, is that I should see elements of explosion if I'm using a top 20 pick on you. Doesn't mean you're a bad player. Doesn't mean that you want to have a successful NFL career, because my ceiling projection, mind you, ceiling does not mean this player will reach this, guys. It just means if all the dominoes fell into place, who do I think would be the NFL comparison? I think Drake London is kind of similar to Allen Robinson. They're both pretty good off the release. They're sudden on the release. They're better than what you would expect a big, tall, long-frame guy to be. But they don't have good deep speed. Like, the deep range isn't there. It's not there. And because of that, they do a really good job at playing a tall slot, and they are useful on the outside in the red zone. There's no doubt about it. Those 2 guys are phenomenal contested catch guys. But, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Would you guys say that Allen Robinson coming out of Jacksonville, let's just throw this one out there. If you could have given up a top 20 pick to get Allen Robinson the years that he was coming out of Jacksonville, would you have done it? Because for me, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it, but I would say that it would cause me to stop and think for a few minutes. I don't know that I would just automatically say yes to that on a top 20 pick. But what I will say is that if Drake London turns out to be 85-90% of what Allen Robinson's career has been, it was a pretty successful draft pick, to be quite honest, guys. I mean, everything in context. I'm just saying that the way that I scout and the way that I rate and judge these things, I would be far more secure, far more reassured if I saw elements of explosion on his film to what I saw with like Mike Evans, to what I saw with Mike Williams. Those guys are big, true boundary side receivers with size protection that have explosive traits on their film. And I don't see that from Drake London, and that bothers me about top 20 evaluation, although I do think that if you got this guy beyond the top 20 picks, he's as good as any other prospect between 20 and, say, 60-something. I mean, to me, any other receiver, he's just as good a prospect as them. Now, what I will say is that there are a ton of these guys that you can get that are size protection. You can size protect with their skill set. And some of them do have explosive traits. I'm not going to comp them and say that they're Mike Williams, that they're Mike Evans, but they have these same explosive traits on their college film that those guys did. George Pickens, Christian Watson, Alec Pierce. Those three guys in particular have explosive traits to their film. They're not as polished. They're not as, nice and neatly tied up into the film as a Drake London. But I do think their ceiling is higher than Drake London's, if I'm being honest. I look at guys like, David Bell, who I think is a true X-line receiver, right? I look at a guy like Emeka Emezi from NC State, true X-line receiver. I think those guys are a little different, right? I mean, I think they're probably a little closer to the Drake Londons. There's not ridiculous explosive elements on their film. I mean, I do think that, Emeka Emezi's probably a little better athlete than what I think Drake London, and I think that, David Bell are, but I think that David Bell and Drake London are just better overall receivers, if I'm being quite honest about the situation. So, what else is left, guys? Who else is on the fringe to talk about? Justin Ross. Justin Ross is a guy who could size protect for you. He's going to be a day 3 pick, more than likely. And this dude has elements to his film that make me get this Keenan Allen-like vibe to him. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Keenan Allen, guys. I mean, that's really tough to do. But I get the vibes from that. So I do think there are many ways to size protect. I know the Eagles want to size protect, and I'm just telling you, I'm hearing that we should be paying closer attention to Drake London than what we are. It's not a guarantee they're drafting him. It means that discussions are happening in the room about Drake London. We'll see what happens, guys. In my mock draft, I took George Pickens because I wanted traits on the film that showed explosion, okay? I would love to add a Christian Watson. I would love Alec Pierce. I think those dudes have traits on the film of explosion, right? I'm a gambler. I'll take a chance on a guy like Justin Ross, who I think is a nuanced enough route runner if fully healthy. He's got some kind of neck fusion. Something happened, guys, with his vertebrae and neck that it took, he didn't have good film last year because of that. But he's a couple of years removed from that injury now, and I think he's ready to go. I'm a gambler. I would gamble on a guy that I think is a very nuanced route runner in Justin Ross, who I think could potentially win. I mean, those type of guys I can see, but I'm just reporting what I'm hearing, guys. I'm hearing that Drake London is in consideration for the Philadelphia Eagles. Leave your comments down below, guys. What do you think? What are your thoughts about Drake London? I know some of you guys are high on him. I know other of you guys are like, I can't stand this guy. Me, I'm in the middle, guys. I'm in the middle. I see the positives. I see the areas of concern. It's complex. What I will say is if you want to know in depth, I got a full page write-up on Drake London. It's inside my draft guide, guys. It's over 98 pages. I go over things like, how to measure someone's actual level of production through yards per route run and why that particular analytic is important to know about receivers. The best way I can describe it to you is if you look at a player coming out of college or in the NBA and you hear somebody throw up just a generic stat like, oh, they were a 30, 40-point a game player. Okay, cool. What was their attempts? How many attempts are they taking a game to get that 30, 40 points? It's kind of the same thing when someone says, oh, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. Cool. How many routes was he running in a game, and what was his yards per route run when you compare those two together and put them? That's the depth and the level of detail that's inside the draft guide, guys. It's $2.99. Check it out, guys. I mean, I made it for you guys. I want to get as many of you guys to read it as possible because it just adds to the intrigue. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you guys on the next video.